What's up, y'all? Let's get back to it here. What's up, chat? Got a small, intimate crowd tonight. Yo, what's up? That was Rooks G with his new one, River Glider. What's up, y'all? It's been a minute here. It's been a minute. We got a small, intimate crowd tonight. We're gonna finish up our Narnian series tonight. What's up, y'all? We're gonna finish up our Narnian series tonight with The Last Battle and A Horse and His Boy, and we're also gonna talk about The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis and a little bit of William Blake's. Northrop Frye's William Blake study, which is called Fearful Symmetry. It's been about a month. Now, I did a member stream on The Naked Gun about 2 weeks ago, so you can check that out if you want to get a membership. But really, I want to thank everybody for supporting me for this month while I've been working on my book. And I'm in the second round of proofs here. Here's the book right here. It's called Runes. This book will be up later this week. This is not the celebration stream for the book, but I've been slogging my way through it and through formatting, and it has been quite the learning curve. So I will talk about that later on in the stream. I hope everybody likes it. I'm going to put it up. I foresee putting it up sometime this week, probably next weekend, and I'll let everybody know when that's going to be. It'll be up on expanded distribution on Amazon. So it'll be on Amazon everywhere, and I decided to self-publish it on Amazon. Shouts out to David Patrick Herring and to Rachel Wilson, Bazed Homeschool Mom, who really influenced my decision to do that. And it really did, the content was done. I've been sitting on, it's a book of poetry. I've been sitting on it for about 20 years. I added a few poems about 10 years ago, and I could not sit there and wait to find a publisher anymore, so I decided to do it myself, and it's straight to you. So that means we have total control over the content. We have total control over it all, so that's good. And I also set the price point and at as low as it would. I think it's as low as it would possibly go for you guys. So I won't. It's a book of poetry. I don't intend, it's not, no one makes money doing that. So it's not really to make money. I'll make a couple bucks for every copy sold, but I hope you guys like it. I know that it's going to be probably the only book of poetry that a lot of people own at all. So it has to be perfect, not just for the content, exactly what I want. It has to be exactly what I want, and it has to be exactly right for you and when you buy it. So thank you for bearing with me and for the patience that you've shown me and for supporting me in that, because again, it's really been killing me in a few different ways. If the physical toll that this thing takes is I don't know. It sounds whatever to say that, but I'll get into that as we go on, and I will talk about what the book is about. But what I really wanted to do tonight was to finish up our Narnian series, because we started this a while back. We've now done, this will be the end of the 7 parts of the Chronicles of Narnia. This will be, I'm going to cover tonight The Horse and His Boy and The Last Battle, and also talk again about C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. Later on, I'll be coming back to Till We Have Faces, the Space Trilogy, and a couple other things with C.S. Lewis. But we've really done a pretty comprehensive study of C.S. Lewis. So let's get into it pretty quickly. I'm going to try to do as concise of an analysis as I can for this. Thank you to everybody for being here. If you want to catch the last couple of those, I think the last couple are in the membership section, the VIP section. And of course, Jamie is going on after us. That's Jamie will have a premiere after this. Speaking of Jay and Jamie, I will be at their event in 2 weeks in Virginia. They'll be doing an event on Philip Ludwell in Virginia in 2 weeks. So if you're there to see Jay and his talk, I will also be there. I'll probably be at the merch table. Shouts out to Ruckus right there, and shouts out to everybody for being here. So let's get into it. So first of all, we're finishing up Narnia here, and what I have to say is this is the total conclusion of the Chronicles with the last battle. And one reason that it's taken me quite a bit of time to conclude this and to finish the Narnian series is because of the nature of the work itself, the nature of C.S. Lewis's work, and because it is so personal. And I think that really speaks to the nature of how C.S. Lewis presents Narnia and Aslan, especially in contrast to how he presents Tash in the book and this demonic entity that occurs. And there's a form of universalism, ecumenism that kind of shows up in the book that the speaker of, especially in the last battle, really seeks to distance. And there's some controversy, especially with one of the characters in the last battle and how he finds his way to Aslan. But all of this is wrapped up in the books, and it really is quite beautiful. I think that, again, yes, well, Token Study, and thank you for being here, says basically it's the Antichrist, right? Well, I think that he's not really an Antichrist. He's more of a this. I think that this represents, for one thing, more of an Islam, an Islamic entity entering into, or an allegorical Islamic entity entering into Narnia, into the Narnian world. And certainly Shift the ape is a false prophet. And so we really get, the last battle is truly an apocalyptic book. And so, again, my reason for taking a long time with this ties back to the reason that we started this whole thing in the beginning. And my thesis with the Chronicles of Narnia really is that this is a masterpiece of literature because it, on the one hand, in many ways goes against everything that I've said that great literature is, but it supersedes it because of the overtly Christian nature of the book and of the books and of the narrative itself. One thing is that C.S. Lewis draws a total. There is a complete. There's a complete dichotomy between. There's a real divergence between. What's up, Jamie? What's up? What's up, Jamie? What's up, Mela? Everybody in the chat. There is a total divergence between the system, the religious system of Aslan, and the system of Tash, and that is all completely tied up at the end. And really, that is encapsulated in the fact that Aslan is the Christ figure of Narnia, and he is completely personal. He represents the living God of Narnia, just as Christ is the living God of this world. In fact, as I said in the other books, Aslan is a literary avatar for Christ in the book. And the way that Lewis comes to this point in the last battle and through The Horse and His Boy is that he shows you that in worshiping other false gods through Narnia, we see all of the vices kind of in their apotheosis and in a kind of perverted hierarchy that occurs, which seeks to make war on Narnia. Whereas when all characters meet Aslan, they meet him as they are, and Aslan finds them as they are and as he wants them to be. So, thank you for the coffee. Yes. So, the book is so highly personal in terms of its how characters come to Aslan that it really does represent the best, I think, of English literature, because we find that my thesis at the beginning was that Narnia is it's a children's series, it's a children's book, but it's not necessarily just for children, but it's for the children that we were. It's for how we are all children. We're all God's children, and how we were once literal children. And it is, I think, really significant. It's really important to go back to these books. I can't think of any other work of literature that one could introduce to children that would be as fulfilling and as wholesome and as positive and as reflective and as meaningful as the Chronicles of Narnia. And I often don't do that on this channel. The channel is not meant to be for teaching. It's not meant to be for instruction. It's not meant to be a kind of class. This is for adults who either have read the works and want a sort of further analysis and a further elucidation of literature, or for people who I've read the books for you. Either way, this series, in a way, violates a lot of the tenets that I've sort of put forth in the channel itself, but in the best way. And I think that speaks to the way that great literature in its composition becomes whole, becomes extant. So just like an artist has the ability to have poetic license and to break the rules, you have to build a foundation before you can break the rules of the foundation and before you can create something new. There's a risk. There's a risk that you take when you are making literature, and that we see in the canon. And Lewis takes those risks and absolutely succeeds. And I think that is reflected in the narrative and in the plot lines of all the various characters that occur in this gigantic saga. The book is so personal that I think that anyone, I'm an artistic sort of fella, I'm a sensitive soul. So I really have I really was affected by these books. I mean, deeply. And I remember, I've talked throughout about how I can recall the feelings I had when I first read the books when I was in like the second through the fourth grade. But it not only brings those sorts of, you get a kind of sense memory of where you were when you read the books. I think, at least I do. But it not only does that, but it brings back, I think it brings you closer to the way that you're meant to be. Lewis says, in terms of his thoughts on education, for example, that, and I discussed this last time, that he quotes Aristotle or paraphrases Aristotle, which is where, he basically says that education is not for teaching you what to like, but it's for teaching you what you should like, meaning what you should appreciate in terms of truth, beauty, and goodness. And there really is, I find it hard to think of anything better than these books in that sense, because they are appealing to our own deeper sense of self in our deep mind, but certainly they are confirm, they are brightening our deeper faith. I mean, I don't see how you could possibly read these books and not be radiant with Christianity afterwards. And I think that's a very weird thing to say with literature, because I've often drawn this distinction between literature, for instance, but like if we are talking about music, between music and between popular music or any kind of music and church music, or between visual art and iconography, where they are completely different. The former is for our expression of what it means to be human, how we become, what we're supposed to do when we're here, our relationship with God, our relationship with each other. But the latter is for worship. which transcends and supersedes all of the literary stuff, all art. And somehow Lewis has made these works, and I think it's important that he sets them in the mind of children. The main characters are children, because again, it's not that they are specifically just for children, but it's for us as children. Does that make sense? It's quite brilliant how he does this. He does this through a combination of his specific tone, the tone that he uses in his word choice, in his diction, and also through his direct second person speech. The speaker in these books is not C.S. Lewis. It's not Aslan. It seems to be our almost ourselves at our best, speaking to us from beyond. They are really incredibly powerful books. And what we learn at the end of the last battle is that the world of Narnia, England for the children is in our world, but because they are children and because they've gone to Narnia, remember that last time Aslan tells the children, you can't come back to Narnia. You will stay in England. You'll stay in the real world, and there you will know me by another name. And so in the last battle, what happens is that the children return as the Council of Seven. They are the high kings and queens of Narnia, and they come for the apocalyptic event. But that's because Narnia is no longer Narnia. It is actual Narnia, in the same way that that there will be a new heaven and a new earth. And one thing that I think that the Great Divorce really it really kind of presages these books is that it shows that the beyond, that heaven is not, it is not all, if in C.S. Lewis's work, heaven is not all ethereal. It is not bodiless. It's that what he's basically saying is that you can't love, you're not going to love heaven and you're not going to love God if you don't love it here. And that everything is all of your love, all of your, in Narnia, he talks about all of your love, all of your virtue, all of the things that you wish in any sense of goodness are all centered on Aslan, that everything comes through him, and that our foibles, our vices, the ways we fall short are all personalized, and they all are seen through the lens of what Aslan has created. So it's very strange, because in The Great Divorce, one thing that, if you've read The Great Divorce, this is a great book. One thing that happens is, I'll start with The Great Divorce, and I'll take us through that, and then I'll take us through the rest of the books. What happens is that we have a character who is essentially on a bus on a holiday going to heaven, and he is with a bunch of inhabitants of hell, and hell and heaven are not at all like I would say the average reader goes into them. When the characters get on the bus and they end up in heaven, one of the things that happens is that they are sort of disembodied spirits. They are ethereal, and they are walking along, and they meet the heavenly creatures. They're meeting people in heaven. They're meeting saints who are wholly there, and they are drifting away for their purposes from further up and further in. And so they sort of meet them where they are, and they're on a kind of holiday to glimpse heaven. And they are incapable of, when they walk on the grass, when they find themselves in a glade and they walk on the grass, and they find that the grass hurts their feet, that all of the ways that they see the world through their gleaning empirical data is offensive to them, because the various characters find that everything is either self-centered or locked in. And as he says, as Aslan says about the dwarves in the last battle, he says that they are so afraid of being taken in that they can't let themselves be taken out. In other words, they find themselves in this outer darkness, and they are so completely self-centered and so hell-drawn that they can't see what's right in front of them. In fact, there are characters who end up in the Great Divorce in heaven, and there's one particular case where there's this is really complex how he gets to this point, but there's a woman who is essentially in misery because her son has been taken away from her. Her son has died, and she will do anything to get to her son, and she'll even go to hell to rescue her son, which sounds like a great mother. The mother will do anything for her son, but she crosses over into ultimate pride when she is unwilling to see that she can love her son more through Christ than having this sort of ownership. Instead of selfless love, she takes on a completely proud sense of owning her child as if he's a possession that makes her whole. And so she says she's given a chance to go and see her son in heaven. She's in heaven. She can go and see her son. He's right over there, and she can meet him through God. But she refuses to do that because she says she has an appointment. She's got to get back to hell. She's got to see her son. And she doesn't understand that all she has to do is just open her eyes and she can see him again. But she refuses to do that, and so she goes back to hell. When they describe hell, one of the characters takes a blade of grass and he plucks the grass out of the ground, and we see that hell fits in a very small place. It's like a pinprick of the earth, and we look down and we see hell below. And it's this incredibly small place. There's a vast expanse when you open into it, but it all fits in this tight little ball. And at the beginning of the book, we see that there is a radiant abyss on page 17. There's a radiant abyss described, and we see that the characters can go and meet all the famous people on Earth. Like they all have these houses that they've built for themselves, and everything that they ever wished for is there. All of their passions are answered, but they only lead to death. And so we see Napoleon, and he's walking around in a house muttering to himself. And across the star system, there's another character, and we see all these famous characters. There's even a character who ends up he's chained. His soul has been visualized and split into two, and he's carrying this ball and chain, and he doesn't realize that he is completely split from himself because he's not unified in God. And this says in chapter 4, it says, I wrote, let's see, it says, at the end of chapter 3, one gets glimpses, even in our country, of that which is ageless. Heavy thought in the face of an infant, and frolic childhood in that of a very old man. Here it was all like that. They came on steadily. I did not entirely like it. 2 of the ghosts screamed and ran for the bus. The rest of us huddled closer to one another. They're getting to heaven, and yet they run away from it. As the solid people came nearer, still I noticed that they were moving with order and determination, as though each of them had marked his man in our shadowy company. They're going to be affecting scenes. Perhaps it would not be right to look on. With that, I slided away on some vague pretext of doing a little exploring. This is the speaker in the book. A grove of huge cedar trees to my right seemed attractive, and I entered it. Walking proved difficult. The grass, hard as diamonds to my unsubstantial feet, made me feel as if I were walking on wrinkled rock. The reason that he cuts himself on the grass, which is like diamonds, is because heaven is seen as a kind of, this is the platonic apotheosis of existence. So it's the same in the last battle. When you enter the new Narnia, when you enter actual Narnia, it's not just the Narnia of creation. This is Aslan's Narnia. So when the characters get there, every living thing sings and breathes and exists for Aslan. So the grass is hard as diamonds and it shimmers and shines because it never dies. Nothing dies. Narnia, the real Narnia, is full of life. Just as Aslan sings creation into existence at the beginning of The Magician's Nephew, which is the kind of prologue prequel to it's the genesis of Narnia, where Aslan is singing the world into existence. At the end, all characters, all the saved, sing their joy. They are in total joy for Aslan. They receive eternal life because they look him in the face and they are terrified of him. He's not a tame lion, but they love him. And all of their sins are forgiven. This is at the end of all things. Dante is sort of the funny thing about The Great Divorce is that it's a kind of anti in Dante's Inferno. It's also a sort of inversion of, it is a definite inversion of Blake's Marriage of Heaven and Hell. That's why it's called The Great Divorce. C.S. Lewis has this really funny thing that he says in it, talking about it in the introduction, where he says that he was reading William Blake and he was reading The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, whatever that's supposed to mean. And he decides to take that, which is a Kabbalistic, Gnostic vision of a cruel world where we live in the Shadowlands, but the Shadowlands are cruel and we have to break through this dimension to the other side, and the other side is where we have the real world by the true creator God. But that's not what C.S. Lewis does. C.S. Lewis says that, and this is Platonic. I mean, Plato is actually literally mentioned in the last battle, that when we get glimpses of beauty in life or in the Shadowlands, which is the real world, we see the way that things truly are, which is this, and this is a Blakean quote, infinite, except for this isn't a Gnostic vision of cruelty tearing down the veil and meeting a world full of joy. It's that we are already in a joyful creation, albeit a fallen world, but we only receive salvation in Narnia through Aslan and through his sacrifice that he's made in the earlier books, because it's an allegorical, it's didactic, but that's because it's for children, and that's because it's for us as children. It really, the thing that I really love about C.S. Lewis is that he truly does speak to us kind of where he finds us. And that is purposeful because it's a reflection of how Aslan meets the characters where he finds them, and where Christ meets us where he finds us. So, for instance, let's see, on page 69 of The Great Divorce, he says, it says here, this is the character's tutor, meeting him, he says, and this is kind of the Virgil to his Dante. He says, "Son," he said, "ye cannot in your present state understand eternity. When Anidos looked through the door of the timeless, he brought no message back, but ye can get some likeness of it if ye say that both good and evil, when they're full grown, become retrospective. Not only this valley, but all their earthly past will have been heaven to those who are saved. Not only the twilight in that town, but all their life on earth too will then be seen by the damned to have been hell. That is what mortals misunderstand. They say of some temporal suffering, no future bliss can make up for it, not knowing that heaven, once attained, will work backwards and turn even that agony into a glory. And of some sinful pleasure, they say, let me have but this, and I'll take the consequences, little dreaming how damnation will spread back and back into their past and contaminate the pleasure of the sin. Both processes begin even before death. The good man's past begins to change so that his forgiven sins and remembered sorrows take on the quality of heaven. The bad man's past already conforms to his badness and is filled only with dreariness. And that is why at the end of all things, when the sun rises here and the twilight turns to blackness down there, the blessed will say, we've never lived anywhere except in heaven, and the lost, we are always in hell. And both will speak truly. What to the saved, what seems to have been a veil of misery was to the saved to have been a wellspring of hope. And so there's also a lot of Peter in these books. I've been sort of reflecting on this, I guess, over the past few weeks about Peter and the disciples, and this is important, in terms of how we look at these works through the prism of Christianity, because that's what the books are. And one thing that I think that's important is that, Christ is constantly being confronted with the ignorance of the disciples. And they're kind of antics. They're sort of, and I mean this in the best way. They're sort of their ignorance for when they come across the King of the whole world of creation. They're meeting God, and so for instance, when Christ is walking on water on the crest of an emerald wave, as Rimbaud says, and Peter sees him, Peter jumps out of the boat, and he's going towards Christ, and Christ is like, I'm already coming towards you. There's no need to do that. And Christ tells Peter that, with faith, you can walk. Of course, he starts to sink, and then when he sinks into the water, that is representative of all of us in faith, how we falter and fail. We start to depend on ourselves, and he cries out to God to save him. And then later on, remember that he denies Christ 3 times. Of course, Peter is I was recently reading about the coal fire. So he's standing by the coal fire, warming himself with the centurions, denying Christ, but then Christ meets him where he is afterwards. Christ gives him a chance again by a coal fire, exactly where he denied him, to find salvation in him. And he's given a new name. And we often get that as just one of the strands that occurs throughout all of the Chronicles of Narnia. We get that with Eustace. Remember that Eustace in Dawn Treader turned into a dragon. He was so locked up. He's so locked up inside of himself that he becomes this sort of dragon character. He's so unpleasant to be around. And yet, of course, Reepicheep has loyalty towards him. Reepicheep won't leave him. Reepicheep is the mouse who, in the last battle, when they get to Aslan's own country, comes out to greet them. But we also get, for instance, Puzzle. In the last battle, Puzzle is the poor donkey who means well and doesn't want to put on this garb of a lion skin to pretend to be Aslan, but he sort of, this is foisted on him by Shift the ape, this sort of false prophet, and he's in misery. He knows he's failed. But of course, when Aslan appears in the last battle, when he comes down from the mountain, Puzzle is the first one that he greets. We also get Hwyn and Bree, the two horses in the Horse and His Boy. Hwyn is this, Bree is a talking animal. So he's on the hierarchy. He's above the common pack horse. But even though he means well and he guides Shasta all the way back to Narnia, and before Shasta gets his new name, like Peter, he gets a new name. He becomes Prince Kor. He becomes so full of pride that he's unable to show that he's been around the common horses for so long that his pride is not truly centered in Aslan. It's centered on being a talking horse. And so when it comes time to show his bravery, like he's always said that he must, he can't do it. And that's where Shasta, the boy who's never known Aslan, takes over. And when he sees the lion coming at them out of the wilderness, which is Aslan, he stands up and he is willing to protect the others. So he has virtue built inside of himself, yet he doesn't know where to put it. One of the most beautiful characters, I think, in the last battle is Emeth. Emeth is one of the Calormen who is from the other country. The other country is, we imagine Christendom, and then we have the Saracens on the other side of the abyss, and he's this is what the Calormen are. And this is kind of controversial in the last battle because he's saved by Aslan when he walks up to the narrow door of the stable and walks into the other side to face Aslan because he's saved. Now, I think people would probably I don't know what people find, I know what people would find controversial. I'm not sure exactly what they say, but I can imagine that people would say, oh, this is a kind of ecumenical spirit. It's showing that all the gods are the same, and that as long as you have virtue in your heart and you are doing good works, that you'll eventually get to meet Aslan. But that is specifically what he says does not happen. That's the whole point of the book. The whole point of the book is to show that the people in the last battle, the characters, Shift the ape, the dwarves are for themselves, the Calormen, Chester the cat, are all guided by their sense of cleverness. So this is what the priests of scientism are now. In other words, their god is their own high IQ without virtue. So the point is that they begin by saying that Shift in the last battle finds this floating lion skin. They're in a kind of Edenic setting, and it's Shift and Puzzle. Shift is an ape, Puzzle is a donkey, and they are sort of living in a kind of noble, savage state of oblivion. And then when they find this lion skin floating down the River Jordan, I suppose, Shift says, wouldn't it be a good idea if we put the lion skin on you and we tell people that you're Aslan, because nobody's seen Aslan in a long time. So then he does this, and so now he's mocking the god of Narnia, and he's mimicking it. And then Shift becomes this sort of grifting, traveling, false prophet that says, only I am the prophet, only I can speak for Aslan. If you want to talk to him, you can't even see him because now I've hidden him away. And by the way, when he hides Puzzle away in this barn, Puzzle is he's ill-treated. He's got like scabs all over him. He's not fed well. And so Shift is just serving his own power. It becomes a sort of megalomaniacal sense of, almost a Miltonian Satan in hell, serving himself, being the prince of the world, rather than serving Aslan, because he's playing on people's ignorance. He doesn't even believe in Aslan. And then when he gets caught by Prince, who's the when he meets Prince Tyrion, I have trouble remembering all their names because there's Tyrion, there's Rillian, there's Corwin. The line of princes extends to the crack of doom, as it says in Macbeth. And when we get Tyrion, who is the ultimate prince in all of Narnia, he's not Peter the High King. He's not Frank, the original king. Those were humans who came from the other side into Narnia. But in terms of the native princes of Narnia, he represents the absolute height of virtue and service to Aslan. Everything he does is in service of Aslan. And so when Tyrion comes in and he sees the Calormen mistreating one of the talking horses, because Shift has started cutting down the cedars of Lebanon. He started violating the sanctity of the talking trees, and everything in Narnia starts being violated. And he says, "Oh no, this was Aslan," and they paint Aslan as this kind of demiurge. And so he becomes this spokesman for Aslan. And when Prince Kor comes and cuts down one of the people who's beating one of the talking horses in the name of virtue, they tie him up. And then he disappears because he calls out to Aslan. When he disappears, he goes back into the Shadowlands, back into the real world, where he sees Eustace and Jill. And he calls out to them. He calls out to the Council of Seven, the great high kings and queens of Narnia. And we find out later that when he does this, Aslan has transported him and then transported him back. But when he disappears, Shift says, "Look what Aslan does to those who do him wrong, to those who speak ill of him. He eats them up. There's eternal wrath upon you, and only I can be the servant of this guy." Meanwhile, all he wants is more nuts and berries and bananas to eat. And then eventually he's taken over by the Calormen, and they say that basically that Tash, who is the god of the Calormen, and Aslan, who's the god of Narnia, are the same. They're just the same entity, but by different names. Eventually, this leads them to say that neither of them is real, that nothing exists, and there's a completely nihilistic, fatalistic world of materialism that occurs in this apocalyptic thing where, remember that Peter says that in the end they will mock you. And they all end up mocking. They're just mocking. And then, of course, the dwarves come along. And the dwarves, I think that the dwarves in this book really, they can speak to people in our world. Because the dwarves, we learn, are fighting both sides. They don't want the right side or the left side to win. They are only out for the dwarves. But they end up locked in darkness. They are totally black-pilled. And so I think this is a kind of lesson to us in the contemporary world, especially in terms of politics and just the entire geopolitical spectrum. That I think that the lesson here is that it's important to remember that in my opinion, I share this with C.S. Lewis, that it doesn't matter in the end, if you think that everyone is lying to you and that the world is broken, if you are not grounded in Christ, that the only truth, where everyone's looking for truth, everyone is looking for, we're all truth seekers, but there's only one truth, the way, the truth, and the life, and that is Jesus Christ. And that if you don't find that, then none of the rest of it matters, because you end up like the dwarves in the last battle, who there's a scene when they are in total darkness and they're in this stable. Of course they're in a stable because it represents the birth of Christ. We're both going back to the wooden structure in Bethlehem as well as Noah's Ark. We're on the Ark towards Narnia. And they're sitting there and they are given a feast. They're given all the greatest food that they could eat. This is a constant motif that we've discussed throughout the Chronicles. This is what first occurred in The Magician's Nephew. It occurs throughout all the books. They're constantly greeted with food. Food is the sort of visual and sensory symbol of what it means to both be saved and to be tempted. depending on how the passions, whether you master them or they master you, and of course of the rules in Narnia as the rules in our own spiritual life. And they're given this great feast, and they think it's fodder. They think it's like hay and trash from the barn. They can't see that this is truly spiritual food that Aslan is serving them. Lucy, of course, Lucy, the Queen Lucy now, is there, and she's talking to the dwarves, and she's telling them, look, open your eyes. This, of course, ties back to when Lucy was walking through the talking forest, and she was saying, Aslan, please, like she calls on Aslan. This occurs in all of the books. They're always at a point of an existential, abyssal crisis, and when they call on Aslan, in the name of Aslan, he appears to them because they call on him with faith. And they can't see her. And then finally Aslan himself appears and says he removes them basically to the outer darkness, to the shadow of his brightness. And he says they're lost. They're lost. And this I think is a great lesson, that some people are so afraid of being taken in that they refuse to be taken out of their own personal hell. And so that is the overriding message of The Great Divorce, and of course The Horse and His Boy, and The Last Battle, and all Chronicles of Narnia, and all of C.S. Lewis, that the souls who find themselves in hell wish to be there. They want to be there. As Aslan says, everybody gets what he wants. Everybody gets what they wish for. So if you wish for darkness, if you wish not to be taken in, if you wish for unhappiness, because you're so locked up with unhappiness, that is exactly what you will get, and you want it. And the people who are seeking Aslan will find him. And again, that's the point of. So Emeth is one of the Calormen, and let me get back to this point. Emeth is one of the Calormen, and he's one of the princes. He's one of the sons of the Tisroc. He's one of the sons of the Tisroc, the sort of nobles of the Calormen of that worship Tash, and he doesn't know Aslan. He's only heard stories, and of course he's been taught that in Narnia, as they're ruled by a demon. Of course, that's true of their world, not of Narnia. And so when Shift sets up this grandiose mirage, which is that each of the people will go into the stable and they will meet Aslan and they will be judged. It's actually the demon that they've called on, Tash, who is in there. The demon has 8 hands. He's got like the head of an eagle. He's a kind of like a sort of Nubian Egypto-Islamic demonic entity, representative of all the sort of pagan religions and of everything outside of Christianity that exists in the Narnian world. And so he flies in, he scares the children of Narnia, and he scares the children, but he ends up in the stable, and he's all in there in his kind of shrine to himself. So Aslan lets him render unto Tash what is Tash's, which is that the people that serve him, the people that are willing to sacrifice others for themselves and for Tash, are going to get exactly that. They're going to be sacrificed to him. The difference is that the Calormen see everyone else as fodder. They know people are not important. Individuals are not important. They will sacrifice others in service of this demonic god who requires blood sacrifice. And so in the end, he's going to get them. That's what they demand. Whereas Aslan sacrifices himself for others so that others will come to him freely. This also occurs in the Screwtape letters, when Screwtape is forced to admit, he's astounded. He has to admit that God, the God of Christianity, the God of the saved, really does love all of his creation. And there's nothing they can do about that. All they can do is try to sway people, try to sway souls away from him, but there's nothing they can do about love. Now, of course, they find love to be repugnant. The people who hate love, who hate Christ, and who hate Aslan and Narnia, they're perfectly content with sacrificing others, or with blood sacrifice, or for pride, or for utter destruction. Their God is destruction. The God of Christianity, God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and in the Narnian world, Aslan, as the son of the Emperor beyond the sea, exist with love. Everything is pure love. And so when this prince comes and he meets Aslan, he finally sees Aslan face to face, and he noticed that he states that he's finally found the real God of Narnia, which is Aslan, because this is the living God. This is the living personal God. It's not an impersonal entity whom he has to sacrifice others to, and then him be sacrificed by him in this sort of blood oath, destructive, nihilistic world into oblivion and nothingness, full of the sort of the sensory passions of power. It's not that. It's that he finds Aslan, and he is moved by his awesome terror, and he finds himself in love with the being that created him and that always wanted him there. So he's given a choice, and he comes to him freely. He just never knew him before. The same thing occurs with a number of characters throughout the books. I think that the greatest thing really Shasta is interesting in A Horse and His Boy, because A Horse and His Boy is different from the other books in the Chronicles because it takes place completely within Narnia. There's no outside world. They never go back to Earth, to England with the children. It all exists there. And one of the most powerful things that occurs, by the way, is most powerful things that occurs is that when Aravis, Aravis is the girl that Kor loves. She's a Calorman woman, beauty, who she starts off as a child, and she's been promised in a creeper marriage to one of the Calorman noblemen, because it's an arranged marriage, but she's just a young noble. She's a girl, and she has to marry this. It's like the movie Taken. And she gets away, and of course when she and Shasta and Hwyn and Bree are on their way to Narnia to escape slavery in the other land, and when Shasta jumps off the horse to try and save the others and confronts what ends up being Aslan, when they're being pursued by Aslan in the wilderness, they keep hearing lions. They think wild lions are pursuing them, and they keep having to run away. And at one point, she gets struck on her back, and she gets clawed. She gets clawed by Aslan. And when Aslan talks to Aravis, he says, the marks on your back they are emblematic of all of the lashes that the slave girl had to undergo to help you escape, because Aravis escaped and she blamed it all on one of her slave girls who got lashed 10 times on her back. And so this teaches Aravis that your actions have consequences. And the beautiful thing about this is that she's thankful, that she loves him, and that she is thankful. And so we see that again, that punishment from Aslan is a wellspring of hope, that it allows us to take account for our sins in Narnia and to become closer to him. Thank you to that Dabble Dog. Thank you. Shouts out for the $5 super chat. You said, I learn every time I tune in. Stay based, big dog. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Hey, listen, you guys, if you want to grab a membership, I would really appreciate it. The membership your membership status really does help me out. It has certainly helped me out over the past month when I've been working on my book, and I really appreciate that because that provides me with some extra incentive and income while I'm trying to work on this thing. I will be doing when I get back to it, which is now. I'll be doing way more member streams. We got a lot going on. Just as a little side note here, we've had a lot going on. This has been a very, very busy end of summer. And I'm going to give some shouts out at the end of the stream. But hey, thank you to Justin Henley right there, and my namesake. Thank you to Justin Henley right there, who just grabbed some memberships. Thank you so much. Jeff 888, welcome to the memberships. Thank you so much. And I will be giving some, again, I'll be thanking people for their support at the end of the stream. We've had a lot going on. I know a lot of people out there have had a lot going on. There's a lot of personal stuff, a lot of health issues, especially people very close to me that's been going on. And also, of course, I will be getting married in just over a month. And then we will have our honeymoon right after that. So I will be gone for the first part of October. And I know you guys. Thank you so much for all the blessings and all the shouts out and all the support that you give me for that. I really appreciate that. And there's just been a lot going on. Of course, I've been working on the book. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. And we'll be doing a special book celebration stream when that officially comes out. I'm saying right now by the end of this week. Again, I want to give a shout out to David Patrick Harry. I hope his book is coming along well. And we plan to have some sort of, if we can ever have a meetup in person with all of us, we want to have some sort of book event where we have all of our books on display. Of course, I want to give a shout out to Rachel Wilson because she really inspired me to do this. And I especially want to thank my very good friend, IRL, Andrew. Andrew, my lifelong friend, I'm not going to say his last name, but Andrew here, who has been extremely supportive of me in every way and will be, of course, one of my groomsmen coming up. Shouts out to all of my friends out there. I really thank you so much. The last battle really is the total reconciliation of worlds, and it becomes Aslan's. It is totally Aslan's world. He says that of course their password on page 70 is "the light is dawning, the lie broken." These characters really have to push through the most hellish journey that they possibly could because this book, unlike the other books, is full of prototypical overt demonic inversion. We have the power of the lie, the power of mimicry, the power of gossip, and really Shift becomes an accuser. He becomes a real avatar of Satan in these books because he is ridiculous and he is beliefless in this, and he's a beast. He's both the great beast 666 and he is also the false prophet in these books. And at every turn in the book, when characters think that they are going to succeed and when they think that they have won back Narnia, they are met with lies and destruction, and there really is no way around it. It really does culminate, the book really does culminate in the absolute supremacy, the omniscience, the omnibenevolence, the omnipotence of Aslan in Narnia. At the end of the day, they must rely on him. They have to rely on him. Everything is based on him. They cannot rely purely on themselves. They can't rely on their own sense of virtue. They can't rely on their deeds. They can't rely on their words. They can't rely on their words and their deeds. They can only rely on the benevolence of Aslan. And they learn that everything that is done that is good is in the name of Aslan, and everything that is bad is done in the name of Tash or an other. And they are finally rewarded with the real Narnia. Jill and Eustace are thrown out of their carriage, out of their railway carriage, and they learn that they were, as they say in the real world, dead. They died. They were in the Shadowlands, and now they are in the true Narnia. Aslan has Peter, the High King Peter, shut the door on the old world, and he sings the new heaven, the new Narnia into existence, and it is embodied. It's not just ethereal. It is, everyone is given the body that they are supposed to have. Everyone's body in the fallen world, in the broken world, is tempered by sin and death. And so when they arrive in the new Narnia, there is no more crying, there's no more tears, and there is no more death. And they go further in and further up. They keep going up the mountain, up the mountain, up the mountain. Jewel, the unicorn, who is the representative of all of the majesty of all of the talking beasts. And the talking beasts in Narnia represent the world in Genesis before humans. So the world is created, the animals are created, and then we have the humans are created, and everything sings to the glory of Narnia. And Jewel represents the highest virtue of this. He's both fierce and he battles, and he's also gentle and kind. This is supposed to be the culmination of everything that is great about the Arthurian romances, about the chivalric order, about all of heroic literature, all of Anglo-Saxon literature, all of Renaissance literature, and it is a complete breakaway from the industrial mal spirit of modernity. This is where the past becomes prologue, and where the things that were great in the beginning will come about again in the end. And everything occurs through the sacrifice and through the love of Aslan. He says at the end of the book, of course, is, I discussed this in the very first stream, that the term is over, the holidays have begun. This is, of course, what C.S. Lewis talks about when he discusses his idea of heaven. And it's important because this is the same as I was saying at the beginning of this stream about who we were as children. So when you live in the world, when you exist in the world, and you are utterly reliant on your parents, and you are a child, and you have school to go to every day, you go through this sort of training and learning for life. And what else could possibly be better than the holiday? Not only just literally getting out for a Christmas break, but for the actual holy day. You leave school and you go off and you're with your family and your friends, and in life you go off on the holy day to worship your Lord, Creator, Savior, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You go to worship God. And that, in the beauty and majesty of creation, the weather, the climate, the people, all of those things in a spirit of innocence, coming to God as a child, are what will come to pass in the new heaven and the new earth, when you meet all of those people and you are completely united in Christ. In this world, in Narnia, it's meeting Aslan, and Aslan only gets bigger. He is completely terrifying, and all of the rules and all of order is through him and because of him. And I think probably the most beautiful moment in probably all of the books is where Shasta, who doesn't know Aslan and has been mistreated his whole life, he was pushed down the river in a basket just like Moses. He was guided by Aslan his whole life. Aslan, through his terror, guided him out of slavery, out of bondage, into the land of milk and honey, into Narnia. And then at one point he falls victim to his troubles, and who's there but Aslan to ask him, to tell him, tell me your troubles, boy. He lays all of his problems, all of his all of his pain on Aslan, and he's given new life, and he's given a new name. He is baptized into a new world where he is in service of Aslan, and he becomes both fully self-actualized and also selfless. He gains personhood, but his personhood only exists in the person of that Aslan has given him, who knew him before he was born and will know him in heaven afterwards. So that is really the conclusion of the Chronicles of Narnia and our Narnian analysis. You can go back through and check out all of these. Of course, I have the complete set here. So, of course, we started with we actually started with the Silver Chair. We went back to Silver Chair, but we began with Magician's Nephew. Then we went Lion, Witch of the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, Silver Chair, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Horse and His Boy, and I can put that away in my set here. And finally, The Last Battle. And there it goes, right back into my little box set. And that's it. That is it. That's it. That's the Chronicles of Narnia. I really recommend The Great Divorce. This is a fantastic book. I also recommend, of course, this book has been a great help to me. This is The World According to Narnia. This is an excellent book. I think I'm going to get to the book on William Blake. I'll get to that in a stream of its own. This is Fearful Symmetry. This is a book on William Blake. So I need to do a full William Blake analysis. I will cover The Marriage of Heaven and Hell in full in a different stream. That's probably too much for me to do right now in combination with The Great Divorce. But we're going to be talking about Apocalyptic Blake and all things William Blake. I've covered William Blake in a number of other streams. If you want to see some more William Blake, you can look at The House That Jack Built. We did the Calabasas. We also did, we've done a couple of things on William Blake. But I'm going to do one, and Red Dragon, of course. We covered Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. So I'll be covering this book in full. I'm also right now reading Susan Sontag's Under the Sign of Saturn. So that is an analysis of Antonin Artaud, which I've actually covered Artaud before, and The Birth of Modernity. This is a really interesting book. It's a series of essays. Of course, it has Susan Sontag is. I studied Susan Sontag because my professor Michael Allen, when I was at Queen's University, I was taking a class on 5 American poets, and my professor there, who was an old English professor of English literature, English and American literature at Queen's University, Belfast. I was writing a paper on the ecstatic spirit of lyric poetry, what occurs in a climactic moment, and he gave me a word for this, of course, which Nick Mullen later used in his comedy, which is jouissance. And I used Theodore Rothke's Big Wind as an example, along with Allen Ginsberg and I used Allen Ginsberg's Sunflower Sutra, Walt Whitman. It was a American Poets class, and a couple of others. But that when he got that word, I was looking for that ecstatic spirit, and he said, dear boy, go over to that bookcase over there. Right, you'll see in the middle, there's a book there by Susan Sontag. Pulled that out. Turn to page 73. Told me the exact page of this book. Pulled it out. It's not this book. It was a different Susan Sontag book. And he said, do you see that word in the middle there? That word is jouissance. That is the word you are looking for. Use it. So that's exactly what I used. So now I'm back to Susan Sontag, who's one of the cultural writers of the sort of postmodern era. She really does talk in this Artaud article, Antonin Artaud, who is a French playwright, theater of blood, theater of cruelty, about it. It's pretty prescient. She discusses how the end of all postmodern deconstructivism is lived experience. So how the culmination of Nietzsche, the arc from industrial from Enlightenment to through Industrial Revolution through Nietzsche, all the way to what became postmodernism, is met in lived experience. Because when there is no more meaning, all one must rely on is lived experience, and lived experience culminates in degradation and depravity through the theater of blood in Antonin Artaud, who is seen as one of the one of the I mean one of the true avant-garde artists of the time. But the point is, you see where this leads, and Artaud is a kind of offshoot of Rimbaud that I've discussed before. At some point I want to probably do a complete analysis of Illuminations and Season in Hell. I'm going to find that difficult because Rimbaud is my ultimate favorite poet, so it's going to be difficult to kind of cover that. I have difficulty covering my absolute favorites like Rimbaud, John Donne, and Ted Hughes and such. But yeah, you know that. Artaud was a French theorist, actor. He was in an Eisenstein movie. He was also in Joan of Arc, silent era film. He was also an avant-garde, playwright and poet who sort of took Rimbaud's "I must become a seer." And of course, the Blakean believe in a prolonged arrangement of the senses to attain the unknown. Although we live in the subconscious, our pale reason hides the infinite from us, which is a kind of Neoplatonism seen through the lens of the voyant, the seer. Now that sort of ties in with my own book, which is called Runes, because you will see that one of the epigraphs to the book is Rimbaud, and that is his I is an other. So this is my book. It's called Runes. This is the proof copy. I just ordered 2 more second round of proofs. It's very difficult doing this because I've had such a learning curve with formatting. The content is not the difficult part. The writing, has its own difficulties, its own sort of psychokinetic, metaphysical difficulties, as you'll see when you read the book. But it's really the formatting that has been so difficult. I've spent it's a moot point. I put a lot of time into this, as the cliche goes, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears with this book. That is irregardless, as they say. That becomes a moot point because all that matters is the end product. So hopefully you will, I don't know about like the end product. I think the poems will assault you. But I consider, I wrote it, and I consider this to be the main thing. This is my main work that I have worked my life to publish, and it's about 61 poems, I think. It's the book is 83 pages. It's about 64 pages of poems, and then with the epigraph and everything, it ends up being about 83 pages. So it is my tagline for this. You have to have a tagline when you put it up on Amazon. My tagline is Personae Poems of the Third Reich, Imperial Rome, and Troubles Era Northern Ireland. So it's a book on the various masks of megalomania as seen through those 3 eras, and it is I wrote, I think, what I consider to be a visceral and violent book, full of what I hope you will consider to be real poetry. Jonan Jello says, nice, hadn't considered the formatting, hope you get it as fine-tuned as you need, can't wait, BLA. Well, the problem is that when you're doing this and you're doing the formatting, I'm pretty computer literate. I think that anybody else could do this in, probably 2 seconds. But it took me a long time to get the formatting exactly right. So the problem is that if you are putting up a book of prose, then this speaks to the nature of poetry and prose, because if you're doing prose, you can essentially splash your words onto the page and they fit the margins and they fit the indentation, they fit all the parameters willy-nilly. It doesn't really matter as long as they're there. So you can have a bigger or a smaller edition, and your words on page 49 can be on page 31 or page 79, as long as they're in chapter series and as long as they're there. But when you're doing verse, the whole purpose of the form is that you have the best words in the best order, and that the first word in the line remains the first word and the last word in the line remains the last word. You can't change the lines. So any change in format can disrupt the integrity of the structure of the poem, and that's half of what the poem is. So you can't just split things up. It has to be exactly right. And even the way that you want to fit a poem that may be slightly longer on one page, it has to be on one. So for example, there's a poem at the last poem in the book is called The Falling Man. And this is, when you read it, you'll see this is obviously a poem based on an event in the Big Nine. And the poem, the content and the form have to match. So it has to be one single tower on the page. It has to look like that. It has to be in a tower with one section removed as if it's been hit, with spaces in between stanzas so that there are flames, and we have to have the content shows that there is a character who is falling. That has to be mimicked in the form. That has to be true. It can't be split into two pages, because it's about one singular tower. It's about one of the two. So you can't have it override a page like that. And so that's very difficult to do, because I'm not used to it. It's a real learning curve again. Next time I know what I'll do differently, and I'm already planning my my novel that I've already got a novel pretty much ready, and that will be published separately and later, and that will probably be under a pseudonym. That book is called West Hampton. But anyway, this is the cover art. The book is too thin for my name on the spine, which is fine. I almost, this is kind of an Artodian thing. Like have you guys ever heard of, I was watching the musician John Martin the other day. Have you ever heard of him? John Martin has a song called Solid Air from the 70s. And I'll tell you a brief little story before I get off. John Martin was an English musician who essentially just played acoustic guitar and sang. And I was in Belfast. I was at a like an Oxfam shop on Botanic Avenue. This is way back in the day. And I walked in and they were playing music. There was a music section, and I was looking through some tapes, some cassette tapes, and this old man said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, J.J. Cale. I was looking for J.J. Cale. My friend had put me on a song by J.J. Cale at the time. And he said, "J.J. Cale's great, but John Martin." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "John Martin, trust me." So I went he gave me a CD of Solid Air by John Martin. And then right after that, this is the way synchro works. After that, I went to Bristol to audition the first time for a Bristol Vic Theatre School. And when I got there, I went through the city center. I was looking for a place to stay, and the Bristol Hippodrome was right there. And guess who was playing there? John Martin, of all people. And so the other day, I was playing. I'm teaching a film and lit class right now, and I was playing a song by John Martin for a young fellow, and it was his song "Discover." Can you discover? And when it was over, this young fellow said, there used to be real musicians in the world. And so we started talking about John Martin, and I was glad that he said this. The Zoomers really do, they are locked in at times. They really do get it. Speaking of which, the new Deftones album is out, and they're all about it, and I'm all about it, and it's been pretty sick to listen to, but that's totally different. But anyway, we started talking about John Martin, and it made me reflect that the great artists sometimes are anonymous. In fact, this is one of the paradoxes of art, that one of the great paradoxes is that the greatest artist is oftentimes totally anonymous. That speaks to what art really is, because the art will speak for itself. The greatest art really is when we know nothing about the person and we only have the work to survive. This is why we have the Beowulf poet, or the Seafarer poet, or the Wanderer poet, or we have, or I don't know, various other works. But and he said, "Why is this guy not famous?" And I said, "Well, he probably, just as a joke, like he probably was offered $1 million to make a song." And it went something like this: We really loved you. We really loved your song. How about we give you $1 million to make a new album? And John Martin's response was, no. And that was it. and this kid, this young fella, he loved it. He loved that. He just goes off. John Martin just goes off to his cottage and makes music, and it's the most beautiful, damaged work you've ever heard, and he's almost anonymous. Anyway, that being said, that maybe it's better that I don't have my name on the spine of the book. I don't know what the point of that was. But anyway, so I will be doing a full-on release of the book when it comes out, and I will be the book will be for sale. It'll be coming up. I'll let you guys know. It will be on, again, I'm going through my second proof copy right now just to make sure everything's good. Yeah, or Banksy or Daft Punk. Speaking of Banksy, Banksy's from Bristol, so that's funny. So I'll be going through my second proof copy when that gets here in a couple of days, and then hopefully I can put it right up for sale. And as soon as I hit that button, it'll be up for sale. It'll be on Amazon. You can find it by my name and by the title of the book. And again, it'll be for, I don't think I can put it any cheaper. I put it the cheapest price point for a 5x8 book, I think. And I did that because it's my first book. It's a book of poetry. I want people to buy it. I'm not trying to, I figure volume will be better than putting it up for more money and trying to make a couple extra bucks from it. It'd be great to make some money from work that I've done, but the point is that I really want, of course I want to make money from it, but I want people to read it, so I'm trying to make it cheap, and I will let you know when it's up. Again, it's called Runes, and it's a book of personae poems of the Third Reich, Imperial Rome, and troubles there in Northern Ireland. It's split amongst all three, amongst some other things, and it is basically a series of lyric poems that I wrote. There's the page here at the beginning after the table of contents. Belfast, Bristol, Virginia, New York, and Kuala Lumpur, and Mississippi. I wrote it in KL, Malaysia as well. And so, shall I read you one before we go? Because Jamie is on now, so we're gonna go so she can be on. And I will read you one poem here, just from this book. Let's see. Should I read you one about Northern Ireland? I think I'll do that. That might be best. Let's see. Pick which one to read. I'd ask you which one you want, but you don't know the poem, so I think I'll read you. I'll read you Siege of Short Strand. This is a random one, but this is about Northern Ireland. This is from 2000. This is called Siege of Short Strand, 2002. In that summer, a great conflagration swallowed the city like Agent Orange, dusting a wheat crop. What was whole shivered up the middle. The lanes cracked through the center. Children played in the chasm. Thunder cracked the glass. Windows boomed onto pavement. Strays bled on footpaths. Their yelps sounded across the mudflats. I got caught in a stone throw. A jag nicked my ear. I sprayed crimson from my lobe when I splayed. Hellions howled and stamped my limbs. I tried to get up, but a mob rush crushed my frame against a chip vat, chucked onto a median strip. I thought of dusk like an aurora, something to keep cool, but a firestorm gushed out of arcing hands, whirling. Petrol bombs penetrated my skull. I asphyxiated. Things fell apart. Where once a village rose, a city section fumed like a red dragon rising in flames, raising lives, wrecking rods. Let me read one more. This is that's Northern Ireland. I'll read one from Third Reich. This is called Rommel. Rommel. He trampled Tobruk. It trembled under our jackboots, coated with dust, even as we first saw it. A squat mirage in a sandstorm gleaming. We rode a heat wave straight to the edge and battered the walls with bullets. We would have sacked the whole city, caused another Carthage of it, caulked it in salt. But he stopped us just with his squint. That face, a noble knight, statuesque like an Agrippa, a Barbarossa of a stance. Nothing escaped his stare. Panzerman, desert fox with a leather trench coat. The stitches worked in the furnace eye of the dunes. A scarf folded over a steel neck. Iron cross, binoculars, and that black cap atop his blonde locks. He would move a C division with a finger point. No maps. He knew every sand wave. He stomped scorpions, but flies never bit him. His blood ran with the sun. When we took prisoners, he dined with them like a sheikh. Alone, he ate crust and no water. A crusader, he died like a Roman in a garden blushed with dogwoods, sand sifting his boots. Okay, so that's it. That is about it. Let me give some shouts out real quick. I want to give a special shout out to my friend Andrew H., one of my best friends. Thank you so much for supporting me. I want to shout out Ethan. Thank you, Ethan, for that $15. And thank you, Ethan, for your continuous support. I really appreciate that. That means so much to me. You have really been such a gigantic supporter. I really appreciate that. Hold on, let me look through the list here. I want to thank Chris H. Thank you for that massive donation you gave me a while back. He said, I appreciate your analysis, especially the recent stream you did about meeting with a Rokor priest. I'm not going to read the rest because I don't want to dox him. It might be too personal, but he said, a blessed fast of the Dormition of the Theotokos to you. Thank you so much, Chris H. I really appreciate that. I don't think I've done a stream since you donated that. So thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. That means so much to me. Let's see. Thank you again to Ethan. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you for that $15. Thank you for the $25 you gave me just a little while ago. And thank you to Brandon for that $10 on Cash App. So much. Thank you so much, bud. Sorry, it's taking me a second here. So I'm boomer teching it here. I'm boomer teching it a while. Thank you to Jason, of course, for your continuous support. Thank you to Quinn. I know I thanked Quinn before, but thank you so much for that $50 you gave me at the end of July. Congrats, future married dude. Thank you so much, man. Thank you to John Angelo for that $10 for the Ari Aster review that I gave. Thank you so much. And also, we got some new members in here. Thanks for putting up with me, guys. I've had some health things going on, maybe because of this book. So thanks for putting up with me. Thank you to Pablo Wenskamar. He grabs another membership. Thank you so much. Thank you to Dapple Dog right there for that $5 super chat. Justin Henley for the membership. Justin Henley grabs donated 5 memberships. Thank you so much. Also, Dabble gifted another couple memberships. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. That means a lot. I want to also thank Rooks G for allowing me to use his music. Please go to Rooks G, ROOXG, and check out his music. He's got River Glider up. Thanks to everybody. Please share this stream out. I will be doing, again, a big release stream on the book coming up, and I'll be covering Susan Sontag, William Blake. This shows me why it's important that you tell me which books to read, which ones you want to see, because I just recently got this. Someone told me to get Gene Wolfe's Shadow and Claw, so I'll be covering this. This is high fantasy. Someone recommended this a while back. I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me for not saying your name. Thank you so much for recommending that I get that. And also, I will be doing Tales of Dying Earth. I'll be doing Jack Vance's sci-fi book here. Sam Hyde says this is one of the best sci-fi books, so I'll be doing Dying Earth. I'll also be covering Dostoevsky's White Nights. That'll be coming up. And that'll about do it for us here tonight. Please go over to Jamie Henshaw, watch her. Please check out also, of course, Alternate Current Radio. Check out Ruckus, Hesher, Spore, all my friends over there. Alternate Current Radio, ACR.com, and check out Boiler Room on Thursday nights. We will probably be back on Thursday night. I know Hesher's been he's been having some trouble. Also, so please pray for him with his back. And please check us out over there. I've been doing those pretty consistently. If you haven't caught me here, you've been checking me out over there. So please make sure you subscribe to Alternate Current Radio on YouTube, and also go over to the website. You can check us out, Boiler Room, Alternate Current Radio, Thursday nights. Please make sure you check us out. Those guys are so generous, and they really know what's going on. Of course, a lot of you guys have been listening to them for years, just like I have. So please check them out. Thanks to everybody who was here in the chat tonight. Really appreciate you guys. Please like and share the stream. Love you guys. I will be back soon. Thank you, Token Study, right there. Great job, buddy. Thank you, Archimedes. Really appreciate you. Mojo, I see you, bud. Thanks so much. Itasca, everybody in the chat. Dapple Dogs right there. Everybody who dropped in. Shouts out, of course, to Clontarf right there, and Malaforta, and to, of course, my friend Maddie, Digital Minefield, Real Cooter Brown, and Jerry at Exposing Powerful Lies live streams. Please make sure you sub to their channels. It's important that we support our friends. They are our friends, and it's very important that we support them and we give them shouts out. So thank you so much to everybody. And let's play River Glider one more time, because this is Rooks G's new song. And listen, was it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it if you're strong enough. So here's Sting and cut off his new album. Take it away to end the show. All right, go. What? Can't do it. We do it live. Here's Rooks G, River Glider. Let's go. Peace, y'all. Thank you.